Sabaho everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I have for you my unboxing and initial impressions of the brand new Red Magic 3. The Red Magic 3 is trying to be the best gaming phone in 2019. It's running the latest hardware, it has a really big display, as well as the fact that it actually has one of the biggest batteries on the market. But not only that, it also supports 90 Hz refresh rate on the display, all at a very good, a very budget-friendly price point. This is TK and let's see what makes the Red Magic 3 so special. First thing you'll notice obviously is the Red Magic logo, very nice, very typical. But some of the main benefits that they're talking to us here is obviously that this is running the brand new Snapdragon 855, a high efficiency cooling fan. So we actually have a fan in there and I'll share with you guys how that one works. The display is a 6.65 inch display at 90 Hz Full HD display. So this device is just running seriously some crazy specs as far as the display. On top of the fact that it has a 5000 milliamp battery, a 48 megapixel rear camera with a 16 megapixel front facing camera. Of course, we still have the touch sensitive triggers that we saw on the Red Magic Mars not that long ago. We have, of course, an eSport inspired RGB strip that's running in the center. Dual stereo front-facing stereo speakers. This is different and I'll share with you guys why. And of course 4D haptic vibration with the vibration motor that's built in, and a gaming space that essentially is a separate launcher that you have built into the device by using that little trigger on the side. And here we have it. The device is sitting right there, centered, and I'll put it right there. And let's go ahead and take it out of the plastic. Just overall, what you can see essentially is we have the nice accent colors, the red, we have the Red Magic written right there, a fingerprint sensor, and what looks to be either, more than likely, this is one of the cooling fans. And yeah, so there's a cooling vent right there and a cooling vent right here on the right side, a volume rocker and a power button. Let's go ahead and take off the plastic. And we'll keep looking. So you'll notice right here on the right side we had the cooling vent, a volume rocker, and a power button. We have one of the two triggers, and you can see them right there. They're very much pronounced, so you can't really miss them. There's 1, 2, and to my understanding is we should be able to use the fingerprint sensor as the third trigger that we can customize. Switching it over on the left side, we have now a dock. That's something that we didn't have before, and that will be basically compatible with the dock that they're going to be selling as a separate accessory. We also have the dual SIM trays option here on the left side, as well as that gaming mode. And basically triggering it on, it's not the same that what we have on the OnePlus devices. Turning it onto the top enables a separate launcher to turn on the actual device. So that's something you want to keep in mind. The display, as they said at the beginning, it was a 6.65 Full HD 90 Hz all the time display. We do have a screen protector, a plastic screen protector that's installed, and we of course have that 16 megapixel front facing camera. On the top, you'll notice that the actual speaker is facing forward. It's no longer facing the other direction. So the top part is actually an all grill at the top and all grill at the bottom. And this basically enables the speakers to be front firing and no longer one downward firing. Now looking over as far as the speakers, as they said, the front facing speakers, we have the first grill right there. That's the top piece married with the bottom one to provide us with that DTS optimized sound experience that we have. And on the bottom, we have USB-C, a microphone, and what looks to be basically just a vent. On the top, we still have the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is really nice. And of course, on the back, as we talked about it, we have one of the vents, the fingerprint sensor. It's pretty much the same design as before, the RGB strip, as well as the red accent colors. But again, main thing here essentially is the cooling system, and what also basically fits into the fact that the device is not flat on the back. It actually has somewhat of basically an opening that kind of gives you enough for the 3 layers of graphene layers to be able to use the cooling system that they're basically advertising here. And we'll still have to be able to test that out. And the rest of the stuff that we have here essentially is a red cable, and that's pretty much it on here. That's going to be used for data and sync and power, of course. And the other thing they also mentioned to us is that this is going to be an 18-watt fast charging capable brick. It's a US style brick, as this is going to be released in the US, and of course USB type A to connect it to the USB type C to be able to charge up our device. I'll be able to do a test as far as how long does it take us to charge up that 5000 milliamp battery, but it definitely is very nice to have fast charging. A SIM removal tool and some documentation, and of course some pictures here with Red Magic for you to be able to customize all the stuff that you'd like. Went ahead and set up the device. It is actually looking for my face because it does have face unlock. Let's go ahead and put that in. You can see it right there. It works. And let's turn it on right there. And just so that you know that I'm not actually using my finger, let's go ahead. And it does work very nicely. Fingerprint sensor, of course, also works very good. It's pretty fast. It's decent as far as the speed. The home screen and the launcher is not exactly the very customizable one. But what we do have essentially is the ability to customize the wallpaper, some widgets, and then of course home screen settings. We can go into notification dots, turn those on, allow home screen rotation, and then change icon shape. By default, it comes as square, which I wasn't really too fond of. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what it looks like. So essentially, it was just everything was square. And what I didn't want that, I just want to basically go into home screen. I can change that, and I can go either these options, or you can again customize it to whatever you like. But personally, I think circle is usually the best one, and I keep that, and it works nicely. There is no Google feed on the side. Of course, there's the application there, swiping up, going down. We have a 3-button navigation system that's built in, and of course some of the more recent applications. As far as the UI and what we're running here, as far as the operating system, out of the box, it's shipped with Android 9.0, March 5th, 2019 security patch update. And I did double check as far as updates. There is no additional updates beyond that point. The settings tab is pretty much familiar to the way you normally see with Android Pie. We have network and internet, connected devices, app and notifications, of course, battery. This does support a 5,000 milliamp battery, and we are able to basically charge it with a full, basically using the 18-watt charger that comes in the box. Now, as far as the display, I did not see any options to be able to turn on or turn off 90 Hertz. It seems that it's running 90 Hertz all the time. So it's in 1080p mode all the time, as well as 90 Hertz all the time. We're able to basically set up all the different options that normally we have: adaptive brightness, night light. You can turn it on, turn it off, depending on your preference. And of course, display size, font size, screensaver, ambient display, and of course, the device theme. I did set it up to dark, but it's not kicking in. But overall, as far as the main experience that you really want to focus on, is that the stereo speakers that we have here are DTS tuned. So we're going to get a really good audio representation, and I'll share with you guys a quick sample in a second. But as far as under the settings, as far as audio, we don't really have much as far as specifically, basically to tune them as far as an EQ. But the sound quality is actually pretty good. Now we can go into the multi-color strip here that we have here, and we're able to customize it and go in there and put in notifications into it, charging, boot options, media, basically a media atmosphere LED, and of course open the red magic lamp symbol if you want to do that. And again, there's an app in the app drawer that we'll check out there. As far as storage, this one does have basically the 8 gigs of RAM with 128 gigs of internal storage. There is the other option that is also available that will give us up to 256 gigs of internal storage. Under system, what we're getting here essentially is just the gestures, jump to camera is on, and then of course preventing ringing, date and time, multi-user, system update, as I mentioned to you guys, is just running Android 9.0, and basically current version is version 3.0 for the operating system. There's no specific name for it. Now going into the app drawer, out of the box there wasn't any games installed, so I did install Fortnite, and I also installed PUBG as well as Asphalt 9, just to show you guys how the game launcher works. But as far as the actual customizations of what we get in the box, you have the ability of going into the settings right away from here. You do have the ability of going and customizing the RGB LED flow. So an example would be here. It's pulsating. I can go ahead and say preview, and you can kind of see how the color changes right there. I can say end, and I can go in there and do flow, and I can basically customize the colors that it's going. And I need to do preview for us to be able to see it. And you can basically customize it. And the cool thing about it is once you customize this option and let's say save, it'll take it in, and then it'll basically be the standard option. You can say effects right there. And then once you go into the gaming mode right here, we'll just turn on the toggle. You notice right there. And we jump straight into the gaming mode. Now, the gaming mode has a few options that are different than what we saw with the Red Magic Mars. First and foremost is the cooling fan. We did not have that before. I'm going to turn it off right there. It does actually sound, so once I'm talking, and if let's say turn on the fan, you can't really hear it over my voice. But if you're in a very quiet room the way I am, you're definitely going to be able to hear it. Let me put this up real quick to my microphone. So it's definitely present, and we definitely appreciate having that in there. Now, the cooling system that they're talking about here is a 3-layered graphene system. So essentially, they're trying to utilize not only the existence of the fan to be able to circulate the air, and the cool thing about it is that we have one vent here and one vent on the side. So regardless of which way you're holding it, you're always going to have the ability of getting some airflow in there, and of course cooling. And you notice that the strip is turned on with the last option that we turned on to it. Of course, we can turn it off if we don't want it. On the side here, if we swipe from the right, we have the ability of using that side launcher, and this stays as long as you're in the gaming mode. So even when you're in a game, you're able to jump in here. So you're able to go in there and customize. So we can go in and go into the basically performance mode. We can either be in standard auto mode, GPU turbo, CPU turbo, or of course super performance, which essentially just overclocks everything. So depending on what you're doing, you want to be able to basically turn it on. You can turn on that mode, closing it and going in there. We also have the statistics as far as the internal temperature. We'll go ahead and close it here. We can go into as far as data transfer, internal temperature. We have the ability of turning on a 4D haptic feedback, touch buttons if you want to be able to turn them on, but it only really has to be within supported games, and PUBG is definitely one of them. And if we have the handler, they also sell an extension basically where it's a side-mounted extension that you're able to play with and use it as a controller. But again, that's an extra feature. You have the ability of turning on the fan and turning it off from here, block messages, super snap as far as taking a screenshot, and of course standby, or of course docking station. As they do also, you have a docking station that enables to use these pogo pin connectors at the bottom to connect an Ethernet port, an external display, and of course much more. And then jumping back into game space. The current games that I have installed are Asphalt 9, of course, as far as Fortnite, as well as PUBG. So we'll go ahead and turn on PUBG real quick, and I'll show you guys how to be able to set up those triggers on the back. First and foremost is the audio. I'll go ahead and lower it right now so that we can talk over it. All of the settings that we normally have, the ability of going into settings real quick. We go into graphics, controls. So the maximum setting, we'll go back here. What happened is I have the triggers set up and I need to make sure not to touch them when I'm actually switching different things. So I have HDR, Ultra, and Colorful as far as the settings that I have for myself. And of course, we can go in there and customize the touch bar. Now you notice the touch bar for me is set up right here, the right, left, trigger. And then what it gives us the ability basically is controlling it. So drag and move it to wherever I want it. I'm going to leave it right now here. I'm going to close it. And let's go ahead and jump into the game and show you how to customize it to your preference. So once you're in the game, you go ahead and turn on the touch bar, and then you can basically drag it to wherever you want. And this is the left trigger, the right trigger, and of course you can customize it, and you can basically see what you're doing here. And you just close it by itself, and then you'll notice right there. So now we are able to open up the bag and put the punching here. And yeah, this guy is just trying to be funny. So the really cool thing about it is that you're actually able to basically use your controls right here. So we're using our hands to control our speed, our direction, and then of course with the right hand, with the right trigger, I'm able to basically do 3 things at the same time. Of course, open up the bag, close the bag, and keep basically playing without having to miss a beat. But the display is really where it becomes very nice. That 6.67 inch full HD display is just absolutely massive. And because of the aspect ratio that we have here, it just looks very nice. And the colors are very vibrant. Again, even though it's a full HD display, we're definitely very much getting the best experience possible. So in the middle of the game, you're able to, again, turn on all the different options, turn on the fan, turn it off, customize it, overclock it, and as well as basically turn up the brightness on the display as you're using it. So you can see right there, it gets very nice and very bright. And then when you're done playing the game, you just turn off the game space itself and it takes you back straight into your normal launcher. Now, you are able to install your secondary and any other launcher that you want, since most of the customizations here are not really present. We don't have a way of basically initiating the Google Assistant unless you basically turn it on directly from the search bar. But if, let's say, you want to be able to install, let's say, Nova or anything like that, I think this will work very nice. The aspect ratio for this phone is definitely one on the long one, so you could definitely see here. It's more of the kind of, I would say almost like the Sony devices that kind of just went very long. It does definitely fit very nicely in the hand because it just gives you so much more real estate to actually see whenever you're playing games. And you can customize whichever games you want, and you can, again, if you have the gamepad, that's basically how it works. You connect it via the Bluetooth connection, and then you're able to use it. When you're done, turn it off, and you're back into your normal mode. The camera on here, again, as they talked about, is there's a 16 megapixel sensor in the front and a 48 megapixel sensor in the back. We have the ability of going into camera family, which gives us the different modes. So you have multiple exposures, light draw, electronic aperture, since we only have one sensor, and of course clone mode, and of course time lapse. Last but not least, you have pro mode, regular photo mode, video mode, and of course pretty mode for your selfies. And of course you can go in there and customize the level of beautification that's done. Let's go ahead and do a quick video for front-facing and back-facing camera. Now, just as a heads up, the front-facing camera picture quality, again, 16 megapixel is the maximum. Back one, we can go all the way to the 48 megapixel, but by default it's set to the 12 megapixel. And as far as video quality, the front-facing camera is a maximum of 1080p, and the rear-facing camera can go all the way up to 4K, but 8K in beta, recommended for outdoors use only, which means the quality on the images is going to be just ridiculous. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. It does actually have an 8K mode, which most devices don't. Starting off with the front-facing camera, and we're able to go all the way up to 1080p. So this should be a good representation of the audio and the video quality that you should expect out of the Red Magic 3. Let's switch over to the back-facing sensor that we're able to actually use all the way up to 8K. We're going to start off at 4K, and then we'll jump over to 8K just to see if it even looks good. Especially it's coming out, and this is well lit. It's in the office. It's well controlled, so hopefully the video will look good. Starting off with the 4K on the back sensor, this is 4K, and we're able to support 4K at 60 frames per second, 1080p, and 1080p at 60 frames per second, of course. But the main thing that I wanted to show you guys today is that ability of jumping over to the 8K mode. Now, it does list it as beta, so I'm hoping it actually looks and it works pretty well. Let's switch over to that now. Switching over to the 8K mode that we have here, now I'm shooting in 8K. Of course, keep in mind that all of this footage will be downgraded directly to be working on a 1080p timeline, as that's how the rest of the video is shot in. But keep in mind, you're able to try using the 8K mode on the brand new Red Magic 3. The one thing I noticed was that whenever I was actually using the 8K mode here, you'll notice how the viewfinder, the jelly effect goes on right there. And that's mostly, I think, because it's a brand new mode. But the sensor itself is capable of shooting in here. You're able to do the autofocusing on it. And again, hopefully you guys had a good representation of how it looks like from that little sample. Let's switch over to some music. Jumping over real quick to the audio sample, we're going to be playing Jumbo by Alex Crindo. This is a no copyright song, so I'll go ahead and put the volume all the way up. So just be ready to enjoy this. Definitely sounds very, very nice. It has the audio quality. You can definitely hear it. You can feel it as well. And it just really gives us a really good experience here. Having everything in here is definitely a very nice combination and looks like a very promising gaming phone. Now, even without the accessories that you're able to pick up for it, it still has a lot of options that are built in. Namely, basically going here real quick and then turning on that little gaming option right there. And just being able to jump in there, customizing your gaming experience. I really like the new implementation of the gaming launcher. And of course, the ability of jumping in here and customizing the actual overclock. As you notice, you definitely have the ability of checking out the temperatures in there. And of course, the CPU frequency. And not only that, customize the gaming option here, as well as the ability of turning on the haptic feedback, turning on the fan to be able to bring down the cooling. And of course, setting the brightness on the display. When you're done, turning it off and your phone goes back to normal mode, and it just looks and works very, very nicely. So my initial impressions of the brand new Red Magic 3 is that this is definitely a very good combination between price point, features, gaming-centric specific features, as well as basically longevity. What I mean by that is it has a 5,000 milliamp battery, one of the biggest battery sizes on the market, on top of the fact that this is also one of the biggest displays on the market, the 6.67-inch display, that it runs at 90 Hz at full HD resolution. So battery life should not be an issue, again, married with the Snapdragon 855. The really cool thing is, regardless of whichever one you get as far as the different models that they have, you're basically only getting either more RAM or more storage. So at the base model, we're getting the 8128, and of course you can go all the way up to 12 gigs of RAM with 256 gigs of internal storage. But at the core experience, the gaming mode, the little game space itself, the launcher, the ability of overclocking, all of those things are going to be basically the same, as well as the 18-watt charger that we get there to be able to charge up the battery right away. I like the design, I like the RGB customization. A lot of these things we saw with the Red Magic Mars, and it definitely carried there. But you're getting so much more functionality, upgraded display, bigger battery, of course, stereo speakers, front-facing speakers that sound really good, as well as still the 3.5mm headphone jack in 2019. You know, it's a feature. There is a couple of accessories. Again, as I showed you, that there is the gaming accessory for the controller, as well as the dock. I don't have access to those, but if they do send them to me before the full review is out, I'll definitely share those with you guys. Keep in mind, again, 8K capability on the camera in the back. It's in beta. It's not going to be the best, but it's definitely there, something to be able to play around with. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of the Red Magic 3? Have you considered looking into this device? Or have you even gotten the Red Magic Mars? Because I personally enjoyed having that while I had the device for me for the review, and really was looking forward to the Red Magic 3 when I first heard about it. So I'll definitely be putting out more content for you guys here, as well as the full review running over at XDA channel. Like and subscribe as usual. Thank you very much for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.